day before the first day of polling for the next assembly. We also acknowledge that the President's announcement on 7 February that the general elections will take place on the 8th of May 2019, and therefore resolves A, to dissolve the National Assembly in terms of Section 50.1 of the Constitution, and B, to suspend Rule 3332 and 3512 to prevent bills and other business from lapsing when the House is dissolved. I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, before I put the motion, I wish to use this opportunity to share with the House a letter from the Honorable, the President of the Republic of South Africa in the same matter. Dissolution of the National Assembly. I received this letter. It's dated 20th February. Of course, we received it today. On the 7th February 2019, during the State of the Nation address, I announced that the general elections will be held on the 8th May 2019. The Constitution requires that the government at all levels to support the Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, in the discharge of its mandate. As part of its mandate, the IEC is required by law to set up and publish an electoral timetable. This timetable is dependent on the date of proclamation of the elections date. Accordingly, we need to ensure that the dissolution of all the legislatures and the consequent proclamation of the election date are properly coordinated. The legislatures should adopt the resolutions to dissolve before the 26th February 2019. The premiers must all then ensure that the election proclamations are published by Tuesday, 26 February 2019. Kindly note that according to Section 49(4) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, the National Assembly remains competent to function from the time it is dissolved until the day before the first day of polling for the next assembly. I have sent a similar letter to the premiers of all provinces. Your urgent attention to the matter will be highly appreciated. Yours sincerely, Mr. Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. Honorable members, having read this letter and having heard the motion from the Chief Whip of the Majority Party, I now put the motion. Are there any objections? There are no objections, so the motion has been agreed to. Happy? But honorable members, we need actually to make sure that we know that we have the supporting vote of a majority of the members of the Assembly. And therefore, without there being a division, members are required to indicate their support or opposition to the motion for the record. So we will ring the bells. Do we really need to ring them for 5 minutes? For 5 minutes? Okay, honorable members, the bells will be rung as you wish for 5 minutes.
Speaker, is Honorable Ginger allowed to take photos in the House?
It's 5 minutes. I'm just trying to take pictures of the about to be dissolved who are not going to come back here.
Is it a selfie?
You take a selfie.
There must be an
It's 5 minutes, not over. Order, honorable members, I would like to remind members that they may only vote from their allocated desks and seats. When requested to do so, members must simply indicate their support by pressing the yes button. If a member inadvertently presses the wrong button, the member may thereafter press the correct button. The last button pressed will be recorded as the member's vote when the voting session is closed by the chair. Of course, we will all press yes. The question before the House is the approval of the motion by the Chief Whip of the Majority Party on the dissolution of the National Assembly in terms of Section 51 of the Constitution as it appears on the order paper. Are all members in their allocated seats? The recording of names of members in favor of the motion will now commence. Those in favor of the motion should press the yes button. Have all members recorded their votes? Thank you. The voting session is now closed. Honorable Kwankwa.
Speaker, Honorable Skwacha here is saying he did not need the opposition's votes to pass this motion. Can we restart the process again from scratch?
Honorable Skwacha is just playing with you. Honorable members, whereas the House, according to the Constitution, needs at least 201 votes, we did achieve 249 votes in favor of the motion. And therefore, the members have voted in support of the motion as required by Section 51 of the Constitution. The motion is accordingly agreed to, and I thank you very much, honorable members.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
may I be the first to thank you for your service?
I thought you would thank me for my patience with you. Honorable members, the secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs on Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
I move, Honourable Speaker, that the report of the committee be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. The secretary will read the second order of the day.
Second reading debate, Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill.
I now call upon the Honorable, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, the honorable members of this House, ministers, deputy ministers. In his State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa outlined the 5 most urgent tasks at this moment in our history. Firstly, that we must accelerate inclusive economic growth and create jobs. Secondly, improve the education system and develop the skills that we need now and in the future. Thirdly, improve the conditions of life of all South Africans, especially the poor. Fourthly, step up the fight against corruption and state capture. Fifthly, strengthen the capacity of the state to address the needs of the people. The Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill speaks to all these tasks. It comes as we celebrate 25 years of democracy and 19 years of fully democratic local government. Building democratic development local government has been a mammoth task. We have brought together over 1,200 disparate apartheid local government entities into a coherent 257 wall-to-wall municipalities that have contributed to improving the lives of millions of South Africans. We have traveled far, but the road has and continues to be bumpy, uneven, strewn with potholes and obstacles, and a number of very sharp bends. This bill represents the lessons that we continue to learn as women and men who, in the words of Theodore Roosevelt, quoted by President Ramaphosa during the SONA, and he says they are in, I quote, in the arena whose faces are marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strive valiantly, who err, who actually strive to do the deed, unquote. We thank those with hands-on experience of striving to do the deed in the local government arena for proposing these amendments, in particular, Provincial COGTA, South African Local Government Association, the Independent Electoral Commission, Municipal Demarcation Board. These amendments seek to strengthen governance in the municipalities and to deal with the challenges in the management of all local government elections. Breach of the Code of Conduct takes forward the fight against corruption and state capture. Firstly, it bans any councillor who has been removed from the office for breach of the Code of Conduct from becoming a councillor again for 2 years. On the Municipal Public Accounts Committee, secondly, it makes it mandatory for all municipalities to establish municipal public accounts committees, MPACs. Importantly, the amendments prohibit officials or holders of political offices, such as mayors, speakers, and whips, from being members of MPAC. The amendments spell out clearly the oversight powers and functions of MPECs, including the power to initiate investigations. Significantly, the amendments make it mandatory for MPEC's report to be submitted to the speakers, who will be obliged to table these reports in council. So gone should be the days of independent delays in tabling of MPEC reports or reports that will be hidden somewhere in the faraway cabinets. Government-related amendments. The amendments bill seeks to contribute to deepening democracy, strengthening governance, and bringing councillors closer to their constituency. It abolishes the plenary type municipality and ensuring that there is a minimum of 10 councillors in a municipality with at least 5 wards. Secondly, it reduces the extent of changes to municipal ward boundaries by allowing for a deviation of up to 20% of the number of councillors determined for a municipality in municipalities that are larger than 20,000 square kilometers. Thirdly, it allows an MEC to designate a person to call and chair a meeting when the municipal manager refuses to do so. The bill further makes it mandatory for all municipalities to establish the important office of the whip, and for this position to be full-time in those municipalities with 40 or more councillors. The amendments spell out the powers and functions of whips who contribute to good governance and political stability. Electoral-related amendments. Lastly, the amendments bill also improves the administration and management of local elections. First, it clarifies the dates when a councillor assumes office after an election is held. Secondly, it provides for the resolution of a situation where excessive seats may arise. It also allows an MEC to inform the IEC of vacancies when a municipal manager fails to do so. And we take this opportunity to encourage all South Africans to register to vote on the 8th of May 2019 before of course, the president is going to be formally proclaiming the date of the election and the voters' roll being closed. We thank also the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of COCTA, the Honorable Richard Mtagane, and all the members of the Portfolio Committee for their hard work and the broad support that they've given us during this process. I also want to thank my colleagues, the deputy ministers, the DG, and other officials who have worked hard to process this bill to the state at which it is. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Mdagane.
Thank you, Comrade Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to present this report, which was supported by all parties except the DA. The amendment we effected in the bill will go a long way in bringing about effective government closer to our people, as well as ensuring that service delivery agenda at local government level, which is bringing a better life for all communities, is achievable at a faster rate. This bill represents a culmination of engagement with all local government stakeholders of over many years. The amendment have been sponsored by, amongst others, provincial COCTAs, the Independent Electoral Commission, the Municipal Demarcation Board, and SALCA, and other people who are interested on the affairs of local government. They have appeared before the committee and expressed their views and support for this amendment. The proposed amendment were further considered and some of the provisions strengthened during deliberation that were held in Parliament in November to December 2018. The Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill contains provisions that are aimed at addressing the challenges that were experienced in the management and administration of local government affairs, in particular elections, and also is assisting us to strengthen the governance at municipality level. Therefore, the bill deals with, amongst others, the following electoral-related matters, which are clarifying the date when a council assumes office, requirement for municipal managers to inform the MEC and the Independent Electoral Commission of ward vacancies, provide for the resolution of a situation where excessive seats where city may arise, allow for the MEC to inform the Independent Electoral Commission on vacancies when the municipal manager fails to do so. Subsequently, the bill also deals with the following governance-related matters through abolishing the plenary-type municipalities, providing for a minimum 10 councillors in a municipality, and allow the deviation of 20% of the number of councillors determined by the municipality in municipalities that are larger than 20,000 square kilometers. Prohibited councillors from becoming a councillor for 2 years if such councillor violated the code of conduct, and also to allow the MEC to appoint a person to call and facilitate a meeting when the municipal manager refuses to do so, and to provide the establishment of municipal public account committees. It was noted that the Democratic Alliance raised some of the issues, but the committee defeated their proposal. Our view, Honorable Speaker, is that the amendment are going to assist all of us who are members of Parliament to ensure that we assist at the local government level and ensure that the sphere of government that is closer to our people functions in a manner that assists all our state organs. It is our view, Honorable Speaker, as a portfolio committee, that matters of local government are very important to all of us. Therefore, we should play our role in our constituencies and other areas of our deployment, of ensuring that local government engages communities and other stakeholders in many issues that they are dealing with. It is our view, Honorable Speaker, that Honorable Deputy Speaker, that this sphere of governance is very important for the proper running of a development at state. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, if the provision and interventions that are contained in the bill are implemented by all municipal council, it is certain to make a positive difference in attempts to upscale governance and to ensure that municipality finds certainty in how to process challenges that they are confronted with. The memorandum of the object of the bill provides further information in respect of each of the provisions that are contained in the bill. Finally, the ANC and the Portfolio Committee is of the view that the amendment contained in this bill will assist a great deal in strengthening and ensuring capable political leadership and oversight management that is accountable and transparent at the local level and capable of delivering on its mandate, that is using public resources to better the lives of all our people. And we are convinced that a majority of all South Africans will vote for the ANC in the coming election.
DA, Honorable Milham.
Deputy Speaker, it is time to face reality. A few years ago, I stood at this podium and accused the then Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Pravin Gordhan, of fiddling while our country burned. I pointed out that our municipalities were in complete disarray and that Minister Gordhan's Back to Basics program had no tangible outcomes. I advised him that amalgamating dysfunctional municipalities was a recipe for disaster, a prophecy that has been borne out since the 2016 local government elections and which even COGTA now admits was a mistake. The sad truth is that South Africa's municipalities are failing. They are crumbling under the mismanagement of the ANC. They are by and large bloated, inefficient, and wasteful. There is a complete lack of oversight, support, or intervention from the national or provincial departments. We've been waiting for the Intergovernmental Monitoring Support and Interventions Bill since at least 2013. It has been promised in budget speeches and in departmental annual performance plans, and it shows no signs of being tabled anytime soon. Where interventions do take place, they are inadequate, with no clear outcomes, and as a result, the municipalities frequently fall back into the same situation a few short months later. And honestly, where there is no political will to intervene and no real provincial or national oversight being conducted, is it any wonder we have scandals like VBS scamming municipalities out of billions of rands? Is it any wonder that we have mayors like Florence Radzilani when they know that any misconduct or crime is more likely to get them sent to Parliament than to prison. Just ask the Honourable Zukisa Faku, who, despite a court finding her guilty of fraud in the Buffalo City municipality against the municipality in March 2016, still sits in this house. So much for the ANC being a party that fights against corruption. We have municipalities like Makana, where the dams have run dry and the pumps lack the capacity to bring water from available sources because they haven't been maintained or upgraded for many years. In Riebeck East, millions were spent digging and equipping boreholes that have never been connected to the supply reservoirs because there are no pipes. Or maybe we should consider Enoch and Gajima, where the entire municipal fleet was auctioned off to settle outstanding debts. Or eThekwini, which wants to use ratepayer funds to pay for an album by the crooner from Nkandla. We have seen municipalities under threat of cut-offs from Eskom, not from load shedding, but because they are unable to pay their bills to the power utility. And neither Eskom nor Selga seem willing to budge from entrenched positions. The interministerial task team appointed to chart a way out of the mess has presented exactly 0 tangible solutions to the problem, despite being on the job since 2014. In fact, Minister Mkhize, you promised to present recommendations in January this year, but so far, nothing. Now contrast all of this with the DA-governed municipalities and the DA-led Western Cape. The DA took over Kocha municipality in August 2016, and since then has made significant strides in ensuring clean governance, in enhancing revenue to the point that the municipality now has cash on hand in excess of 150 million rand, and implementing emergency measures to ensure that the drought does not affect its residents. It has handed over hundreds of title deeds that sat in a storeroom under the previous ANC administration. It is a municipality that takes service delivery seriously. In Tabazimbi, the DA started off their first day in office with the sheriff coming and taking away all their equipment and their fleet to settle debts run up by the previous ANC administration. Within 2 weeks, the DA leadership had ensured that the offices were operational and had furniture and equipment. They had put in place emergency arrangements to enable the running of essential services. For the first time in 7 years, billings and valuations were rectified, and that has helped stabilize that municipality's finances. There's still a long way to go, but the residents of Tabazimbi will agree that they are better off now than they were under the ANC. In Modimolle Mokgopong, DA Mayor Marlene van Staden has been begging since late 2016 for National Treasury to conduct a forensic audit into the finances of that municipality. It took nearly 2 years for the MEC in Limpopo to agree to such an audit, something the ANC and the EFF were bitterly opposed to. That audit was concluded in October last year and handed to National Treasury. We still await the report, but it is clear that the ANC and EFF are seeking to cover up corruption and a looting spree in that municipality. Or maybe we should talk about Tshwane, which the ANC left 2 billion rand in debt, and which now has 2.1 billion rand in its accounts and a positive credit rating. Or the city of Johannesburg, where Mayor Herman Mashaba has uncovered 18 billion rand in corruption, where more than 3,500 cases are being investigated and 700 arrests have been made thus far. Continuous oversight and a hands-on provincial government in the Western Cape have ensured that that province has the highest number of clean municipal audits in the country at 83%. And it is the top province in terms of good governance and has been for the last 6 years in terms of the presidency's performance management assessment tool. You see, this is the difference. Where the DA governs, there is oversight and accountability. There is action, not words. There is delivery, not false promises. All of which brings me back to the Local Government Municipal Structures Act, amendment bill that we have before us today. Make no mistake, this bill does make some positive changes, like establishing and empowering municipal public accounts committees, and clarifying the composition of executive committees, which have long been abused by the ANC, who seem to think that they can determine who other parties' representatives on those committees should be. And it is for these reasons that the DA will support this bill. But it is little more than fiddling while Rome burns. It is fiddling around the edges of the massive systemic failure of local government. Neither Minister Mkhize nor his predecessors Pravin Gordhan and our very own weekend special Des van Rooyen have addressed the financial and governance failures of local government. Minister Mkhize's solution is to send them engineers rather than accountants. They have not addressed the criminal mismanagement of municipalities. Instead, the ANC sends the perpetrators to Parliament. And it's not just the Bosasa and VBS accused, it's the tainted people, like Mr. Cash, the Honourable Philly Mapulani, who allegedly made millions through graft while the municipal manager of Madibeng. It's people like these who have turned local government into personal piggy banks, and they are the swine with their trouts in the trough. So while we support this legislation because it does the right things, we believe it has not gone far enough. The time has come for change. Change that delivers for all South Africans. Change that cleans up the mess left behind by the ANC. Change that brings about the good governance and service delivery of the Democratic Alliance. Because where the DA governs, we govern better than any other party in South Africa. On 8 May, vote DA and help us build one South Africa for all. Thank you.
Honorable Sonyani.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the local spheres of governance in the most important sphere, and as far as delivery of services is concerned. It is also true that most of our municipalities are in dysfunctional state with incompetent people and have become havens for criminals whose sole intention is to loot the public resources. There are urgent reforms needed, therefore, to restructure the entire system of municipal governance to guide against abuse of authority, against lapses in governance that leads to corruption, to regulate appointments not just of councillors but of senior management too, and to have the measures against those who engage in corrupt and destructive activities. Instead of limiting itself to matters relating to the election of councillors and regulating the minimum number of councillors per municipality, as this bill does, it could have been used to comprehensively restructure local government. We do support the clarification of minor issues, such as the date at which councillors become officially elected. And we welcome the proposed coming from the Northern Cape in particular, that there must be a minimum of 15 councillors per municipality. But these are barely enough to tackle the structural impediments to efficient local government and delivery of services. These relate primarily to the lack of consequence management in municipalities. The Auditor General has for years identified problems that need to be resolved in each municipality, and year after year, these problems have not been resolved. These problems relating to the lack of appropriate financial and management skills, political interference, and infighting in councils have crippled local government in this country. As a result, the majority of municipalities are in a shambolic state, which suits the ANC objectives of looting quite well. A comprehensive solution of this problem is required, and that includes tightening up legislative provisions and improving the administrative capacity of the municipalities to collect debt, fix infrastructure, and report regularly on services delivery challenges. The solution must also entail a relook at the founding model of local government to ensure that the bulk of the national budget actually goes to where it's needed the most, to the municipalities who are the coalface of service delivery. This must also entail asking a question about the continued relevance of the provincial spheres of government and the need for the discontinuation of provinces to pay more attention to service delivery at the local level. We are in a broad support of the amendments proposed in this bill, but we urge that it could have been utilized to usher in much more comprehensive changes to the structure and functioning of the local government. In conclusion, we are asking all South Africans to vote for the EFF. EFF is the only party that will usher true freedoms to our people. Stop voting for this ANC year after year, which continues to put our people in more poverty. It keeps on telling you, Tuma Mina, and they are continuing by Choncha in that Tuma ring of theirs. Therefore, we are asking all South Africans to vote for EFF. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ngwezi.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, at the outset, let me state the IFP's support for this bill. But that being said, there remain a number of concerns that still require address in our municipal structures. As handed down in the Tlogwe judgment, there must be proper defining and contextualizing of the rules of legislatures and powers that are held ex officio by their respective office bearers. The rule of law must be upheld, and office bearers must be, under no uncertain terms, made aware that they themselves are creatures of the statute. In the execution of their duties, they must be fair and free of any bias towards their political alignment and affiliation. And Section 139 of the Municipal Structures Act must not be used to fight political battles. We are noticing in many municipalities where, for example, the ANC is in leadership, they take too long to intervene in ANC-led municipalities. For example, the issue of Utugela and Newcastle, the MEC took so long to intervene there. But in the IFP-led municipalities, by just hearing that one portfolio committee did not sit, the MEC will want to invoke Section 139. Sinkatile, like in the issue of Mtubatuba, we have heard that you are trying to move in there slowly, and that is actually fighting political points using Section 139. The rule of law, as has been stated on so many occasions, cannot and must not continue to be sacrificed upon the altar of political expedience and convenience. If one looks at the findings of the Auditor General as regards audit outcomes, one will find that the audit area which with the lowest improvement rate over the last number of years has been in regard to municipalities that fail to comply with municipal legislation. Slow responses in respect of corrective actions in such matters only fuel municipal service delivery problem, with weak controls resulting in irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I wish to conclude by once again raising the plight and the role of traditional leadership within the Act, which must be strengthened. Section 81 of the Principal Act, as it currently stands, is an affront to traditional leaders all over South Africa, in that it expects traditional leaders to play a role in local government, but in no way, shape, or form capacitates them financially or otherwise to carry out such duties. And that must be addressed, Honorable Minister. I thank you very much.
Honorable Kubisa.
I said that the first sentence, that the IFP supports the bill. Thank you very much.
The order, Chief Whip, order. Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party welcomes the bill tabled here today, as the bill seeks to provide for seamless administrative matters in case of seats that a local municipality must have, elimination of the concept of district municipality areas, days for the by-election, representation threshold at a district municipality, considering the population size and geographical square meters. Whilst the National Freedom Party agrees that dealing with a void or a lacuna in case the Speaker, the municipal manager, or any other official designated by the member of Executive Council is important, it is indeed worrying and concerning that as from 2000, the government has not deemed it fit to legislate on such pertinent matters. For instance, in 2000, there were 60 by-elections, 2006, 54 by-elections, 2011, 741 by-elections, 2016, 43 by-elections. The list goes on and on and on. In each year of the by-election or election, We have encountered instances where municipalities are paralyzed by political power struggles, and it becomes worse where there is a perception that the intervention of COGTA, Honorable Minister, is partisan or biased. That exacerbates the problem, and municipalities become dysfunctional for a long time. There have been many instances where it takes a long time to inaugurate municipalities officially, and the citizens of that area and on the ground, they become victims of non-service delivery. Whilst the bill attempts to respond where there is confusion on issues such as declared elected or date of election and many others, like the finding of the council who has been broken the code of conduct through fraud or corruption and two-year sentence, etc. It is our considered view, Minister, that in light of the killing of councillors and officials, we need to tighten the legislation. The murdering of councillors, officials, and security guards has become a common phenomenon. The National Freedom Party feels that working with the security cluster, COGTA should attempt to tighten the legislation so that those who commit these heinous crimes of murdering others for their own ulterior motives are brought to book or face the full might of the law. It also takes a long time for officials and councillors who have been found or been charged for wrongdoing to come out or exit the system, Minister. It is worse when they are migrated to other lucrative positions, either in municipalities, same province or other provinces in our country. The bill in its current form has a number of loose valves, and whilst dealing with administrative matters, it falls short of covering some of the other critical matters that affect municipalities. And some of these matters require intra-party or multi-party interventions. In short, they require political situations. We have noted that in some instances, problems continue to indefinitely as municipalities and communities feel that the intervention by MECs is perceived to be biased, and that must stop. Having raised these concerns, the National Freedom Party supports the bill. Chief, we support it.
Honorable W.W. Vessels.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The FF Plus does support the bill, Honourable Chief Whip. But the biggest problem is the fact that this bill will not actually address the collapsing municipalities and the biggest failure of the ANC government. Since 1994, the biggest single failure of the ANC government is on local government level. And you have many failures. But the problem is, the reason for that failure is the fact that the ANC does not regard legislation as important. They regard legislation as guidelines, only guidelines. Go and look at what your councillors, your mayors, and your speakers do on a daily basis in local council meetings. Illegal meetings take place. They have a complete disregard for the Municipal Structures Act. These amendments will mean nothing because they won't be implemented. They won't be adhered to. The Code of Conduct for councillors is positive, but it won't be adhered to. It won't even be regarded as singly important because the ANC is only interested in a place to redeploy their cadres and to have a place to make more money and take more money from the people. Local government is not the center of service delivery because the second reason for our failures on local government level is the ideology of the ANC to centralize everything. We heard the Honourable President saying that there should be less provinces. That's wrong. We must have more provinces, more local government units of service delivery, because we need to take the power of service delivery closer to the people, not further away. A lot of these amendments, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is only needed because the ANC can't even trust their own appointed municipal managers. Why do you have to have MECs declare vacancies and not your municipal managers? Because you can't trust them. Because you appointed people that are not competent to do the job. You appointed people on political reasons And now there's factions and the ANC is falling apart and you have trouble. Now you need amendments in legislation. We do support the bill, but what we are saying is the ANC is going to be, will be, die ANC agbaarheid jong speaker, gaan gestraf word by die stembus as gevolg van u mislukkings op munisipale vlak. Want dit is waar die mense ly. Dit is waar die hol tussen huise inloop. Dit is waar mense ly as gevolg van u swak dienslewering en die feit dat u glad nie belangstel in die mense nie. Ek dankie.
Honorable W.M. Madisha.
Thank you, sir.
Remember the posture. Just remember the posture. Yeah. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ned.
Oh, okay, thank you. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is clear that this amendment bill seeks to amend the Municipal Structures Act to address, of course in part, problems that have been experienced in relation to the administration and management of municipal elections. We support these amendments. Apart here from, Deputy Speaker, COPE welcomes one, the clarification of the formula to be used to determine the composition and membership executive committee. Number two, the decision to do away with plenary executive type municipalities. And three, the creation of a legal imperative for the establishment of municipal public accounts committee. Broadly speaking, these amendments appear to be inspired by a theoretical desire to foster oversight and good governance. But the question is, will they? As COPE, we have our doubts. Many would agree that our constitution and our suite of local government legislation provide a modern and comprehensive framework for the attainment of good, clean, progressive, and developmental local government across the country. Instead, where the ANC governs our municipalities are crime scenes, epicenters of ANC-inspired corruption, greed, dysfunction, failing service delivery. It is only where the opposition govern thus far that we find municipalities that are governed according to the letter and spirit of the law. Municipalities that are well governed and that are delivering upon their developmental mandate. It is clear, Deputy Speaker, that good and progressive governance cannot simply be legislated for. Rather, it starts with the election of ethical leaders. To my fellow South Africans, I say, the key to saving South Africa is in your hands. And please save South Africa. At the moment, we are in trouble. Thank you very much.
Honorable Shabalala.
Thank you, Chair. It's surprising sometimes when the progressive move is being done by the African National Congress, everybody else will put some holes where there are no holes at all. The African National Congress took a decision in 1991, I don't know where were you, in 1991 in the 48th conference in Durban to establish the local government, the wall-to-wall local government. As informed in terms of the Constitution of South Africa, Chapter 7 of forming of the local government. The ANC in Ready to Govern document, which is the policy of the African National Congress, in 1992, it was put as the requirement to establish local government. So today, the task is to amend the municipal structures amendments that we are dealing with today. And therefore, as the African National Congress, we believe that in those amendments that are required to address some of the minor challenges that have been experienced at the local government level, as well as by the IEC in terms of setting up the municipal structures in different municipalities. This is the reason we are today saying we want to amend. But over and above that, we must remember that in terms of the establishment of the Municipal Public Accounts Committee, it has not been catered for in the Act, and therefore this is assisting us in terms of making sure that the accountability and making sure that the monitoring, as we are committed to the clean governance as the African National Congress. We therefore believe that in terms of the participatory democracy, we need to make sure that we do amend this act so that it can be able to assist us in terms of where the municipalities, there are places where some of the municipalities are refusing to establish the ward committees. And therefore, this now amendment is going to assist us in terms of the establishment of those ward committees for us to be able to have a proper participatory democracy to our people. We therefore applaud the committee in terms of the work that
of developments, and we could see the impact that that's had on mining investment commitments at the investment conference. Then just
Honorable Gallo, my apologies, sir.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, the AIC supports this bill. However, there are few issues that we would like to raise. The local government structures bill has glaring anomalies and will not pass the constitutional muster. Despite our support for its promulgation, the bill cannot be passed as it is. The formalization of the Municipal Public Accounts Committees marks an important era in the governance of local government. It will strengthen public resources against plunder. We are concerned, Deputy Speaker, that the bill empowers the executive head of the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, that is MEC, of a particular province to designate a person to call and chair a meeting of the municipal council where the speaker, acting speaker, or municipal manager refuses to call the meeting. This will be tantamount to the violation of the separation of powers. It allows an executive functionary in a province to pick and choose the chair of the municipal councils when the speaker, acting speaker, or municipal manager refuses to call the meeting. Effectively, the MEC is allowed to continue the chairing of the council. This could have the ripple effect of stifling robust debate, criticism, and effective oversight in the council. In our view, when there is a stalemate on the chairing of the council, the mediation committee should elect the chair. Where the mediation committee is non-existent, the bill should create one. The MEC cannot be the one who delegates the chair of the council if one considers the South African electoral system with its attendant shortcomings. Thank you very much.
Honorable Mtetwa, sikuwena manje baba.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Actually, Chair, when you want to discuss this bill, you need to start by understanding the history that the country is coming from. That the apartheid has left the imprint on South African human settlement and municipality institution. The transformation requires, Chair, an understanding of the historical role of the local government, creating the perpetuation local separations and inequalities, and the impact of apartheid of municipality institution. Equally important, Chair, is the history of the resistance to the apartheid at the local level and the struggle against apartheid local government thereof. The advance in 1994 of democracy in South Africa changed the regulatory framework of the local government. South African citizens were free from the shackles of the oppressive regime and experienced democracy rule. Freedom from apartheid, Chair, comes with promises of a better life for all and realization of constitutional protected human rights. The preamble, Chair, to the Constitution lays the foundation for an open and democratic society with a Bill of Rights recognizing the injustice of the past and aiming to improve the equality of life for all citizens. The majority of the electoral support constitutional mandate which set the foundation to democracy and bestowed positive obligation on all spheres of government to ensure, Chair, the enforcement of the Bill of Rights as well as obligation to ensure that majority of the people experience a better life for all. It is, Chair, it is against this backdrop that transition of the Act 1993, the new constitution envisaged a complete transformation of the local government system in terms of a new constitution. Local government is a sphere of government in its own rights, no longer a function of national or provincial government. Local government, Chair, has also been a distinctive state and a role in building democracy and promote social development. Proposed amendment to the municipality structure promotes the setting on some matters and to strengthen the oversight and governance in the municipality. In the main, Chair, the bill speaks to two fundamental areas. The first fundamental area, Chair, is a matter of electoral, where you allude of the vacancies, as the previous speaker has spoken about it, the formulas, the issue of the time frames, and the party list. The second one that is important, Chair, is the issue of governance matters. In the government, Chair, I want to pull one important part, which is the impact. The impact, Chair, will assist in getting better audit outcomes, among other issues like the quorum decision and the abolition of the plenary type. We have noted, Chair, however, the challenge experienced by the plenary type municipality, including limiting of exclusive authority to the full council, and it is unable to delegate its executive responsibility to an individual council or any of its committee. In strengthening oversight, Chair, the governance, municipality, and ensuring services delivery for all. The municipality structure amended bill seeks to do away with the plenary chair, as I've stated, so that it enables the system to flow smoothly, and this will contribute to municipality councillor to improve oversight over the administration and executive by implementing critical checks and balances to ensure that municipality implements the constitutional mandate as accountability in one of the tenets of the democracy. Therefore, Chair, it improves the oversight in the local government to hold municipally, executive, and the administration accountable should be the prerequisite to implement the constitutional mandate of the local government. In conclusion, Chair, The ANC is convinced that the proposed amendment provides the solution and clarity which will restore the confidence of the majority of our people in our municipality as the primary delivery material of the development state at a local government level. It is for this reason, Chair, that on the 8th of May, we must go all out in our numbers and vote for this, for the National Congress to ensure that all these bills get implemented as it requires. I thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister. Kahleni bo, how do you scream like that? That's out of order. Ow. Please, man. Just
Thank
lower
you
your
very
voices
much,
here.
Deputy Speaker. I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the members of this House and the different parties for supporting these amendments. I think this is a situation where we've collectively looked at the problems that we've experienced and provided solutions together. I really appreciate that. And I want to say as well that we have learned over the many years on our local government, and therefore we will continue to learn and correct whatever remains that might not be ready to be solved by the current problems. I think it's been obvious that some of the members are going to be tempted to try and get into too much of the politicking around this. But I just want to say one thing. When we come across problems in the local government sphere, we admit, we correct, we move on. But there are others who I can only say, because you have had a huge fight in Swane. The Auditor General says that there were irregularities in the Glad Africa tender. I've looked into the Google. I can't see a single statement from Mr. Mailham, the honorable member, or the DA, other than those who are in Swane, and they tried to have to jump off the thing, the council. In fact, they had to be thrown out because of this problem. So when there are problems, we must know that they must be faced, but it must not be because we think that it's okay to raise it if it's only ANC, and if it's our party, then we don't talk about it. This, for me, is an issue of how we mustn't be hypocritical about these matters. Having said so, I also want to indicate that the issues that relate to the traditional leaders will be attending to, and so all the concerns that have been raised by the other members, we will be giving attention to. We want to send a message to our people that the African National Congress is here for them, that the ANC will raise the issues where we need to be able to solve problems and improve service delivery. But where there are mistakes, we will admit and correct. And for that reason, we would like them to come in their largest numbers to vote for the African National Congress. Thank you.
Honorable members, that concludes the debate. Are there any objections to the bill being read a second time? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the bill a second time.
Local Government Municipal Structures Amendment Bill.
The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. Honorable members, the last item on the order paper is a debate on an urgent matter of national importance in terms of Rule 130 in the name of Mrs. N.W.A. Mazzoni on Eskom energy crisis. Honorable Mazzoni.
Deputy Speaker, South Africa is now in an official hostage situation. We have a situation where two belligerent parties, one being Eskom and the other being the ANC, are holding the South African Republic, the South African economy, and every person within South Africa as security in the hostage drama. We, as South Africa, have a metaphorical knife to our throat, and we are being forced to pay a never-ending ransom to Eskom, or else the throat will be slit, and the result will be a full-out blackout and the death of South Africa as we know it. This is no over-exaggeration, and this is not panic peddling. This is the absolute reality. We are teetering on the very edge. We should be absolutely terrified at exactly what would happen if this crisis worsens. As government, every single effort and every single action should be focused on nothing other than averting this crisis. And to anticipate any possible responses, no, enough has not been done, and enough is not being done to save our country. The date is the 11th of December 2014. The Deputy President and the Leader of Government Business is one Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. The plan is to turn around Eskom. Mr. Ramaphosa will oversee this. The plans fail dismally. The date is the 11th of July 2017. The Deputy President and the Leader of Government Business is one Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. A new plan is discussed to turn around Eskom, increase revenue and reduce spending. Plans fail dismally. The date is the 31st of January 2018. The Deputy President and the Leader of Government Business is Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Fitch downgrades Eskom. Eskom vows to implement a turnaround strategy. We now wait. Eskom is clawing its way back. I think we can see the plan has failed dismally. The date is the 2nd of December 2018. The President is Cyril Ramaphosa. The Leader of Government Business is Mr. David Mabuza. Rolling blackouts have rocked the country yet again. A new turnaround strategy is planned for implementation, and I think we can all agree the plans have failed dismally. I have watched year after year, Eskom board after Eskom board, rolling blackout after rolling blackout, Eskom price increase after Eskom price increase. Eskom just gets worse. As a state-owned entity, the company simply cannot function. The ideological battles within the ANC are now not only ripping the party itself apart, it is causing an economic crisis the likes of which this country has never seen. The DA has not just sat back and complained. We have taken proactive steps of providing solutions, providing legislation, requesting countless times to sit around the table and be of service. We have said it so many times. This crisis transcends the bounds of politics. The very future of our country is at stake here. The kind of overhaul needed at Eskom should mean splitting Eskom into a generation entity completely independent of the transmission and distribution entity. The generation entity should be privatized over time, where well-functioning power stations can be offloaded to the private sector that will do just that, create cheaper and more sustainable energy. Our bill was in fact gazetted just yesterday for public comment, and it is the first real concrete step in changing the Eskom structure. Less talk, a little bit more action. The Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, announced another set of bailouts for struggling state-owned entities yesterday in his budget speech. A massive 69 billion rand lifeline has been promised to Eskom over the next 3 years. Unfortunately, that is not nearly enough to keep the sinking boat afloat. The truth is that Eskom has hit an iceberg in the form of a mounting debt of 419 billion rand and counting. An oversized workforce, low productivity, lack of critical skills, brand new faulty power stations, scar tissues from years of corruption and maintenance backlogs are just some of the problems that face this entity. When one adds the municipal debt that is owed to Eskom, this sinking ship has one way to go, and that's straight down. The financial lifeline and split of Eskom into 3 entities will not be enough to save Eskom. Even with the 3 units, there will still be only one board calling the shots. What Eskom needs is a complete overhaul, not a mere rejig. Now we need to face some very harsh realities. State capture hit its very zenith during the term of this parliament. It was devised, executed, and almost completed under the watch of then-President Jacob Zuma and his entire cabinet. President Ramaphosa has himself said this is known as the 9 wasted years. 9 wasted years indeed. But let me tell you what was also wasted. 6 opportunities to vote in a motion of a no confidence, to vote out President Jacob Zuma. 6 times the ANC voted in favor of keeping him and cheered and sang and gave him a standing ovation. Every time these motions were defeated. Every single member of the ANC in this House is to blame for state capture. The politics of the stomach completely winning over the politics of the people. I have to laugh when I hear statements made in the media such as, "We had no idea it was this bad," or "What, should we have acted sooner?" Yes, you should have acted immediately. But you see what happens if you'd acted immediately, where those pesky little small anyana skeletons would have had nowhere to go and hide. It simply cannot be that every single member of the executive did not know what was happening under your very noses. You aided and abetted the selling off piece by piece of our country, and shame be upon you all. The ANC government has taken the people of South Africa for fools one too many times. South Africans are politically astute, and we will not fall for these games and lies again. It is not normal, and never should it be, that rolling blackouts rule our lives. The time has come for South Africans to take back their power. The date is the 9th of May, 2019. Cyril Ramaphosa is no longer the president of South Africa. The people of South Africa have taken back their power. The date is the 10th of May, 2019. The president is one Mr. Musi Maimane.
Honorable Mganga Kamashe.
Honorable Speaker,
Yes, honorable member. Honorable, please take a seat.
may I stand on a point of order
Yes, sir.
or an offering?
I'm listening.
Yes, I think we have got enough psychiatrists to offer services to the previous speakers. I'm just offering, and it's free.
Please
Very
take
free.
your seat.
Point of order.
That's not a point of order. Yes, honorable member.
Not only, is it,
Lord.
not only is it not a point of order, but it's casting aspersions on a member of this House. And I would advise that the Honourable Minister should withdraw the statement that he's just made.
Yes. Okay, we'll come back to you just now. Proceed, honorable member.
Mhlonishwa sekela somlomo namalunga ahloniphekile lendlu izihambeli zayo kanye nabo bonke abantu bakuleli laseMzansi Afrika siyanibingelela kulesi sikhathi esinzima esibhekene naso sezinkinga zokulethwa kukagesi i-load shedding inkampani kahulumeni Eskom sicela ukuthi sonke njengezakhamuzi zalelizwe sibheke ukuthi lesi simo sisilungisa kanjani ngokubambisana singamalunga ezinhlangano ezahlukene zezepolitiki ezezinkolo zonke izinhlangano zemiphakathi osomabhizinisi noma ngabe sihlale emadolobheni amakhulu noma kwamancane ezindaweni zasemakhaya rural areas nasemahostela imbala kanye nasezakhiweni informal settlements kuma township kuma suburb nasemafletini imbala ugesi nokuphakela kwawo akukhethi ibala lomuntu ngakho ke sonke siyathinteka futhi ingakho sifanele sonke ukuqinisekisa ukuthi ugesi olethwa emakhaya ethu emabhizinisini kwizimboni emasontweni ezikoleni emahovisi konke lokhu kwenziwa ngemali le mali kufanele yenze nomsebenzi wokugcina izindawo eziphehla ugesi generations ikwazi ukusebenza ngendlela eyiyo zimaintainwe uma singakhokhile ukulethwa kwezidingo zethu ngeke kuqhubeke kahle ngoba yonke imisebenzi yokwenza lokhu idinga imali Sicela bonke abantu bakithi abanezikweletu zikagesi basabele kwikhwelo likamongameli uCyril Ramaphosa likathuma mina khokhela ugesi. Sithi-ke thuma mina ngokukhokhela ugesi. Amakhasimende consumers abasindwa ukukhokhela ugesi wamamitha siyabakhuthaza ukuthi bawushintshe lolu hlobo logesi bashuntshele kuhlobo logesi wekhadi obizwa nge-prepaid card system ngoba wona usebenzisa ngendlela ekalwe wena futhi uthenga ngamandla onawo. Lolu hlelo ngowawo wonke umuntu alukhethi ngezinga noma ngemiholo yabantu. Ngingasho nje ukuthi ngisho usotswebho omkhulu walendlu umhlonishwa umnomzane Jackson Mthembu naye washintshela kulogesi wekhadi futhi maningi amalunga lendlu nawo asebenzisa wona logesi wekhadi. Futhi awuyi ngokuthi uhlalaphi nabahlala ezindaweni ezaziwa ngama-suburbs baningi esebeshintshele kugesi wekhadi. Usiza ngokuzikalela imali ofuna ukuyikhokha ngogesi wakho. Siyagqugquzela ukuthi imiphakathi elethelwa ngqo Eskom ugesi ezindlini zawo njengeSoweto nezinye izindawo kwiSouth Africa baye kokhokha futhi bacele nokuxoxisana noEskom ngohlelo abangalenza ukukhokhela izikweletu zabo kancane kancane. Ngoba thina singukhongolose siyazwelana nabantu bakithi. Njengoba bengakhokhi abanye futhi bengayi nakocela ukukhokha kancane kancane bavimbela eminye imiphakathi engakafakelwa ugesi ukuthi uthole nayo phela. Ngoba ayikho imali engenayo kodwa ephumayo kuphela njengoba beqhubeka nokusebenzisa ugesi. Nalabo abaphakelwa ugesi umasipala futhi okuyibo abaqoqa imali omasipala egameni lika Eskom kumbe bewuthenga bona omasipala kuEskom. Sithi labo masipala mabakhokhele izikweletu zabo kanti nathi esiusebenzisayo esakhele izindawo zomasipala siqhubeke ukuze umasipala aqhubeke nokuletha futhi kufakelwe abanye abasalindile ama-connections phela nama-installations. Osomabhizinisi ikakhulukazi abahlala emahostela kanye nabahlali basemahostela nabo siyabacela basukumele phezulu bayokhokha. Ikakhulukazi osomabhizinisi bakhona bayashisela abanye badayisa iziphuzo ezibandayo kodwa bawukhokhela ugesi abawusebenzisayo iningi labo. Njengoba benza imali ngamabhizinisi abo nekahulumeni inkampani yadinga ukuthola imali kagesi. Lokhu sikusho kubona bonke abanamabhizinisi amakhulu kanye namancane. Kukhona abaningi futhi abantshontsha ugesi bawufake ngokungekho emthethweni. Lokho kwaziwa ngezinyokanyoka phecelezi ngabahumshayo illegal connections. Nabo mabakuyeke lokho ngoba kungukuntshontsha ugesi futhi kuyicala elifanele ukuboshelwa. Nako futhi kuyingxenye corruption le kade sikhuluma ngayo la ngaphambili. Lokhu kuphinde kube ingozi ezimpilweni zabantu. Sibonile ngisho abantwana nabadala bebulawa ukushokwa ilezi zintambo zikagesi ezifakwe ngokungekho emthethweni futhi zishisa nemizi yabantu nempahla yabo. Okukhulu kakhulu kuqeda amandla ukuphehlwa kukagesi kuma-transmissions ngoba asuke esempampa ngokungaphezulu kwalokho ayakhelwe kona. Futhi-ke nje asikubalule ukuthi health and safety ezimpilweni zethu ibaluleke kakhulu. Yiko-ke lokho okwenza sibe kwi-load shedding ngoba uma ama-transmission eseqhuma futhi njengoba abezinyokanyoka bengakhokheli ama-connections kanye nokusaplaya kukagesi bawisa ibhizinisi lenkampani yakwa-Eskom ngoba i-maintenance yama-transmission idinga imali le kufanele ngabe bayayikhokha ngokuthi bazo-installelwa ugesi futhi babe nama-legal connection futhi ivimbela ukwakhiwa kweziteshi zikagesi ezintsha ezingaphakela ezinye izindawo sonke masibike ngezenzo ezimbi zokuntshontshwa kukagesi futhi sisukume sonke sibabaze sikhuze lo mhlola omubi kangaka siyavuma ukuthi zikhona ezinye izizathu ezimbi ezinomthelela walesi simo esibhekene naso njengenkohlakalo corruption kanye nokungaqhubeki ngendlela ekwakhiweni kwemaduphi nekusile stations bakhona ozakwethu abazokhuluma ngalokhu sithi kubantu bakithi sisazibophezela njengo-ANC njengoba senza kusukela ngo-1990
Yes.
ngo-1994
Mamen, ulibovu lilowasha ngithi uyalibona sisi lithi
down
usuke
with
ke
illegal
lapho.
connections down
Yebo.
phansi nezinyokanyoka phansi hashtag sikhokhele ugesi siyabonga
Honorable Paulson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Deputy Speaker, the Eskom debate has been completely hijacked to mislead our people, and we will quickly unpack and expose the sickness at the core of some of the mad proposals linked with a thievery that knows no bounds. There's no unbundling that will happen without an intention to privatize Eskom, and the process to privatize Eskom has already begun. To privatize state-owned entities, especially those that are strategic, you collapse them, make them unworkable, and frustrate the masses, as is currently happening with load shedding. Then once everyone is angry with the state, you present private investors as saviors. You will then have a situation where the fox will guard the hen house, and it will become evident immediately as prices of electricity will skyrocket. Firstly, it is not a coincidence that the first thing that Minister Jeff Radebe did when he was appointed as Minister of Energy was to sign bid window 4 of the purchasing power agreements for IPPs, despite all the evidence that it will cripple Eskom's liquidity position. His brother-in-law, Patrice Motsepe, is heavily invested in renewable energy projects. Mr. Motsepe owns some of the major renewable energy projects that have signed purchasing power agreements. Just to mention a few, he's a 30% shareholder in Dongwana Energy Project, 11% shareholder of South African mainstream renewable power, Kangmas, 11% shareholder of Perdekral East Power, 15% shareholder of Zolograph Investment, which owns the World Power Station, 15% shareholder of Bokamoso Energy, 15% shareholder of Zeres, 15% shareholder of Greenspan PV Power Plant, 15% shareholder of Droogfontein 2 Solar, 15% of Waterloo Solar Power. These shares are disguised by layers of subsidiaries to create a web of deceit, and almost all of them were signed in bid window 4, for which Minister Radebe was solely responsible. For Mr. Motsepe to hold a press conference to try and give an impression that there is no corruption happening while we suffer load shedding is misleading. These projects are funded by ABSA of Maria Ramos, Old Mutual chaired by Trevor Manuel, and by Mr. Motsepe's companies. We have not even touched on IPP projects owned by President Ramaphosa through Pembani and a larger network of web of companies meant to hide obvious shenanigans. Secondly, Mr. Kasim, the Eskom CFO, during his delivery of interim results in November last year, admitted IPP costs averaged R2.12 per kilowatt, adding that Eskom needs support from government and NERSA to address the situation where Eskom buys electricity at higher prices but sell at regulated prices less than 90%. The madness of IPPs is to collapse Eskom liquidity, because if IPPs are cancelled today, Eskom will have room to breathe. The ridiculous idea that Eskom's collapse was due to incompetence of black engineers and managers is not surprising, coming from someone who goes around replacing competent black people with white people. Black professionals, not only engineers, must take this as a taste of what is to come if they continue voting for the ANC government of President Ramaphosa and Minister Gordhan. The battle for control of energy generation has moved from Eskom to policy, but in the immediate, the most efficient solutions are the most obvious solutions. Number one, cancel all IPPs. Number two, Eskom must take all its coal mines from private companies, develop a detailed register of assets, and a state-owned coal company must operate all these mines. Number three, Eskom must build internal capacity, appoint black engineers, artisans, and managers with decent and deserving salaries. The EFF will not stand by and watch our strategic assets, built and maintained by our own money, get handed over to private and greedy monopolies. Thank you very much.
Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Flashback 2001. Eskom named Power Company of the Year at the Financial Times Global Energy Awards in New York. All of its 78 production units at the time were considered to be in good working condition. Today, just 18 years later, it is nothing short of a catastrophe. Eskom remains a veritable sword of Damocles hanging precariously over this country. To say that it is only dysfunctional would be a compliment. When Eskom is not crippling the economy with rolling blackouts, it is extorting money from the citizenry with absurd electricity supply price increases. In short, Eskom holds South Africa hostage. Now, besides Eskom's legendary maladministration, tender corruption, and general lack of any sense of sound business practice, it also remains widely overstaffed. 32,000 in 2007 to 48,000 in 2018, with an associated cost growing from 9.5 billion to 29.5 billion. And reportedly, it remunerates its staff at a level of 4 times higher than the global average. It is no wonder they are perennially at Parliament or at NERSA with their begging bowls for additional taxpayer-funded relief. Speaker, maintenance and on that question, is the increase in human resources, Honourable Minister, consistent with an increase in productivity? Maintenance and plant renovations are a disaster. If our new coal-powered stations, which by the way will be 2 of the largest greenhouse gas emitters in South Africa, are online by 2025, it will be a miracle. And I would request the Minister to inform this House, as of today's date, how over budget these 2 power stations currently sit. On the question of illegal free connections, it's not only the cost, but it's also the cost of lives. Last week, a 3-year-old young child was electrocuted in my area because of illegal connections. What is government doing about it? What are law enforcement agencies doing about it? Is there a silver bullet that will miraculously correct the multiple and continuing failures at Eskom? No. We do have a trust now that Eskom itself will, under its own directive of the board, take immediate steps, which include legal action to collect the debts owing to Eskom by looters, including former staff. Lastly, Honourable Chairperson, for the sake of political expediency, let us not sacrifice the country. We need to get Eskom working, even if it means getting rid of staff. Staff that are excess in numbers, we have to get rid of them. Let us all put the country first, because without electricity, there is no economy in South Africa. Thank you.
Time has expired. Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Colleagues, let's start off by saying I don't believe, and the National Freedom Party is very clear about this, it is not Eskom that's the problem. It is the people that manage Eskom that's the problem. And if you don't deal with those that manage Eskom, you're not going to deal with the challenges that Eskom face. Now, many years ago, we established and knew that we were going to have a serious problem with Eskom. Number one, on maintenance. There was no budget set aside for maintenance, and very little attention was given to maintenance. Now, we were forewarned. We did very little or nothing about it. Now, the question is, why? Let me also say what we did. We got rid of a lot of experienced engineers and things that worked at Eskom. We brought in new human resource with very little or no experience. And that is why we're sitting with a challenge at Eskom today. But over and above that, in most state-owned entities, if not all, I think, there's one common factor. And that common factor is fraud, corruption, maladministration, lack of capacity. And the question is, what exactly are we going to do about it? Let me remind this House of that evergreen contracts that continue to run at 30 to 40-year contracts, which we did very little or nothing about. Now, privatization has a purpose, and that purpose is to act in the interest of investors, not in the interest of the people that we serve. And that is proven throughout the world. Now, why can we not have a model of 51% owned by the state and 49% by the private sector? So we are still in control as a country in the interest of our people. But we know, as the National Freedom Party, we find that some of us are obsessed with this thing of privatization. And the question that arises is, when somebody wants to buy shares, or they want to buy a business, or they want to take over a state-owned entity, they can only do that because they know they're going to make profits. So the question is, why can we not make the same profits if it is a state-owned entity? Only thing we need to do is make sure we employ people with the capacity, with the integrity to be able to run these organizations, and we won't have this problem ever again.
Thank
so
you,
I'm
sir.
hoping that we learn from this and correct this. Thank you very much.
Honorable Kwankwa.
Indeed, Honorable Sheikh Imam, the profit motive is a problem. Deputy Speaker and honorable members, commenting on the Eskom crisis earlier, General Bandolo Misa asks or makes a very pertinent point where he says, Eskom's policy of blackmail seems to have paid off. Now that they've received the bailout money, load shedding has vanished into thin air. Banana Republic, he asks, or was it a ruse to get money for elections as the ANC did with Busasa for its ANC rallies, Yangoba rallies? South Africans, you be the judge. We don't know. We are merely asking questions for you to consider. The United Democratic Movement believes that a drive for investment in the energy infrastructure is critical for our development and poverty reduction in the country. You are all aware that we have serious gaps between energy demand and supply that South Africa was burdened from the former regime, colonial regime, apartheid regime. That being said, if the African National Congress had planned this properly, it was not going to take them 25 years to wake up to the reality of energy shortages. The unbundling of Eskom, while one of the most important and viable options, is not necessarily a panacea to our energy shortages or challenges. We are of the view that we must move away from the idea that building more of the same will fix our problems. We must look to the development of a new sustainable energy infrastructure that can turn South Africa into a leader in sustainable energy. The focus of energy must move away from traditional sources of energy such as coal and diesel generators towards more renewable and sustainable energy sources so that a modern, sustainable energy infrastructure is developed. Mr. Minister, one of the views and things that we feel strongly about is an issue that we've been advocating for many years. is that policy must be developed to ensure that municipalities, we can even start with metros since they have more resources than other smaller municipalities, have the capacity to generate their own energy using alternative sources of energy. We must caution, however, that it would not be possible for us to do this without addressing the resource constraints that are faced by municipalities due to the current funding model, which gives them only 9.1% of the total revenue. We make this point, Mr. Minister, and the House, because we are of the view that if the energy sources or needs are located in order to ensure the maximum efficiency and success of the project in communities, in other words, certain areas of this country that are deemed to be windy should use wind energy as a source for energy, and those that have an abundance of water can use water to generate electricity to overcome some of the energy shortages that we experience in the country. So sithi kanilungiseni le nto ngendlela eyiyo. Sisafuna uthetha xa nasinika i-3 minutes asi-19.
Isiphelele ke.
Amasela.
Honorable Vessels.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Mnganga mentioned some valid causes of the crisis at Eskom. But the true origin of the crisis is the ANC and the ANC policy. It is the ANC government on all spheres that allowed the debt owed to Eskom to skyrocket, whilst for more than 15 years taking little to no action. It is the ANC government who allowed that in the last decade there were 12 CEOs, 6 chairmen, 60 directors, 30 executives who were paid in the last 10 years a total of 514 million rand. The Honourable Minister of Public Enterprises said in this House last week that one of the reasons for the crisis is the lack of skills and especially engineers. But whilst we are rendered in darkness, a group of former Eskom engineers are currently building a state-of-the-art power plant in the Philippines. Why are they not assisting us? I'll tell you why, Honourable Deputy Speaker, because they are not welcome at Eskom. Why? Because of their skin colour, because of the ANC's archaic policy of affirmative action. Because of that archaic racial classification, the poor and the vulnerable in South Africa are suffering the most, and our economy is collapsing. And let me, Honourable Deputy Speaker, also tell the DA that the fact of the matter is that it is not people that are saying that affirmative action caused the problem, that are saying that black people are inferior. It is the policy of affirmative action that's rendering black people inferior. The policy that you and the ANC are supporting are rendering black people as inferior. And that is the problem, Honourable Speaker. We are not appointing the best people for the jobs. We are only interested in redressing rather than restoring the economy, eradicating poverty and creating jobs. On the 8th of May, the voters had the choice to actually support a party who fights back against this archaic system, against racial classification, and against the system that has created the poverty and the economic crisis that we are facing. It is time that people take a stance and that we actually want a better future and not a better past. We should appoint the best engineers to actually address the problem. It's a lack of skills that created the problem. It's the ANC that allowed the people to steal the money, for salaries to skyrocket, and for the debt from municipalities and public departments to skyrocket. I thank you.
Honorable Madisha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Roger, I'll come back to history. But Deputy Speaker, the establishment of Eskom was premised on the need for a reliable and cheap supply of energy. And it was this that resulted in the establishment of Eskom and other low-cost steel producers and the expansion of our mining industry, amongst other industrial developments. The ANC cries sabotage, but history will reveal that it was the current governing party that conspired to destroy Eskom on the altar of insatiable greed and corruption, thereby irrevocably sabotaging an economic and developmental prospects. Some of us do speak from history. There is a bitter irony that the illegitimate apartheid regime protected Eskom from sabotage. But what should have been a morally legitimate and trustworthy government in the form of ANC committed treachery of such treasonous proportions with Eskom. Today, the generation and supply of electricity is neither reliable nor adequate nor cheap. It is the governing party that is responsible for our deindustrialization. Many would say that Eskom represents our single biggest ongoing risk as a nation. But as COPE, we say the biggest risk is not Eskom, but the current governing party. It is the ANC that conspired and oversaw the defiling and plunder and collapse of Eskom. It is the ANC itself that profiteered immorally through the Chancellor House. And it is clear that the ANC and its alliance partners are so compromised, factionalized, and split, caught in their own web of greed and corrupt interests, that it is paralyzed, unable to put together a coherent and viable plan to save
Honorable
Eskom.
Madisha, please hold on.
Okay.
Take a seat. Yes, Honorable Chief Whip.
Is the honorable member ready to take a question?
Are you ready, Honorable Madisha?
Yes.
What should we do when you apply to come back to the African National Congress?
That is a question that does not need any answer at all. It is the ANC that betrayed the trust placed in it and broke Eskom, broke our education system, broke our healthcare system, broke our economy, broke our fiscus, our systems of governance, our cohesion as a nation, our hopes and aspirations, our future.
I'm afraid to give you the bad news. As you see, the clock is red. Look at the clock. Your time is expired, sir. Honorable Mileham.
Deputy Speaker, even when there isn't load shedding, many of our citizens face dark, cold nights without hot water or cooked food. It's not because they haven't paid their bill or because there are power outages, it's because their local municipality has racked up debt to Eskom that they are unable to service. The worst offender is Maluti Apofung, which owes in excess of 2.8 billion rand to Eskom. The municipality is unlikely to ever be able to settle its bill, as the interest far exceeds the revenue they generate each month. Others like Emalahleni, Machabeng, and Tabachu are also in dire straits and owe hundreds of millions of rand. At the end of March 2014, total municipal debt to Eskom was 2.6 billion rand. By the end of March 2017, it had increased to 13.6 billion rand. And by September 2018, it had reached a staggering 17 billion rand. Soweto debt, which is separate from municipal debt as it is a direct Eskom supply area, also rose to 17 billion rand during the same period. And combined, they are now increasing at R1 billion a month. This is not something that has crept up on us. The Democratic Alliance has been warning of this financial crisis since 2014. At that time, Minister Gordon assured us that an interministerial task team would deal with it. This is the same task team that the President and the Finance Minister announced over the past few days as if it were something new. Well, here we are 5 years later, and the situation is far, far worse. It is now a crisis, and solutions from that interministerial task team seem to be missing in action. Minister Khadebe's announcement at the Africa Energy Indaba that municipalities need to become more self-sufficient with regard to the production of electricity is to be welcomed. In fact, it is a key platform of our Cheaper Electricity Private Members Bill, which Honourable Mazzoni tabled earlier this year. The key issue, however, which Minister Khadebe has failed to address is the ability of municipalities to manage this process. Most South African municipalities don't have the capacity to install, maintain, and accurately read their customers' electricity meters, let alone ensure the accurate billing thereof. In our proposals, municipalities must have the financial and technical capacity before they are permitted to generate or manage their own electricity supply. A huge part of Eskom's trouble arises from the money that they are owed. So how can we fix it? The first thing that needs to happen is that there must be an assessment of which municipalities are A, in a position to pay Eskom what they owe, and B, manage, finance, and control their own electricity supply. Then we need to clean up municipal financial management and more specifically municipal billing. We can do this by deploying the right experts, auditors, accountants, and managers with integrity to help municipalities get their systems sorted out and accurate bills sent to customers. We need to ensure that they collect all the revenue that they are entitled to and that their budgets are fully funded and cost effective. We need to make sure that they have control of all the electricity supply in the areas of their jurisdiction. So the city of Johannesburg, for example, would take over areas like Soweto and Sandton, both of which are directly supplied and billed by Eskom. Not only will this give the municipality credit control over those areas, but it also increases their revenue because the municipalities mark up the electricity they purchase. Lastly, we need to address the cost of electricity. 25 years ago, this country prided itself on having the cheapest electricity in the world. Now we are pushing to become the most expensive. It is unconscionable that Eskom has increased electricity tariffs by 356% over the past 10 years. It is reprehensible that we pay significantly more for electricity produced by Medupi and Kusile than we would for solar or wind-generated electricity purchased during the Round 4 IPP bidding. Chairperson, by now it should be obvious. Government is failing to provide basic services for its residents. This electricity crisis can be laid firmly at the feet of a corrupt and incompetent ANC. The various ministers of COGTA and public enterprises and our President Cyril Ramaphosa, from the time when he was Deputy President until now, have failed dismally to address the challenges in Eskom and our municipalities. Where the DA governs, we are miles ahead in providing energy security for our citizens. More than 8 out of 10 municipalities in the Western Cape already have laws in place for independent electricity generation, and many of them are ready to sell electricity back to the grid. Because where we govern better. So on the 8th of May, vote to keep the lights back on.
Thank you very
Take
much.
back the
Your
power.
time has now
Vote
expired.
DA.
Thank you. Meranto.
Chairperson and the House at large, good afternoon. While listening to a home run show anchored by veteran journalist Ernest Pillay on SAFM radio yesterday afternoon, a certain gentleman called in and said something simple, yet very profound. This caller said, in times of crisis in state institutions, we must allow those vested with executive authority, the president and the cabinet, to take tough decisions. As citizens, we can then judge them on the correctness or otherwise of their decision. Kucho umntu ongumhlali. Nithini nina malungu elendlu? He said he was happy that the Minister of Finance took responsibility to set out policy measures to lead our country out of the difficult economic state of affairs in his inaugural budget speech. Bantu baseMzantsi Afrika, makhe sime umzuzwana bantu sikhe sicinge. Kwinyanga ezintathu ezidlulileyo bendimi kweli qonga. To be precise, nge-29 kaNovember ngo-2018, kulo nyaka udlulileyo, ndimi kweli qonga ndisenza ingxelo yekomiti yethu yophando kwizinto ezingalunganga kwa-Eskom. Besikunye naba bantu ngoku besisenza lo ngxelo, sivuma sonke, sithetha sonke ngazwinye, namhlanje sijikelwa ngaba bantu. Ngumthetho wabo ke bantu baseMzantsi Afrika okokuba bathetha le namhlanje ngomso bavuke bethetha elinye, namhlanje bayavumelana nathi ngengomso abasathethi lonto. Bantu baseMzantsi balumkeleni abantu abangaqinisekiyo ngezinto abazithethayo, abaqinisekanga aba bantu ngalento bayithethayo. Thina siyi-African National Congress siqinisekile ngento esifuna uyenza, siqinisekile into yoba urhwaphilizo lona sizalulwa silukhuphe nengcambu apho lukhona. Urhwaphilizo sizakululwa nokuba lwenziwa ngubani njengokuba sesiqalile. Siqalile ukucoca ii-SOEs zethu, siqale ku-Eskom, saya ku-Safcol, saya ku-Dinel, zonke eziphantsi ko-public enterprise siqalile ukuziklina. Yintoni kanye kanye endiyifunayo?
Honorable Rancho, take your seat. Yes, Honorable Member, what's your point?
Thank you, Chair. Is it parliamentary for the member to scream?
Take your seat, Honorable Member. Proceed, Honorable Rancho.
Today, perhaps motivated by the desire to capture the attention of voters, abavoti ke bantu bantu be-DA abangabo abantu abangenangqondo. Kukho abona abantu banengqondo apha eMzantsi Afrika zii-voters. Zinijongile ii-voters zoMzantsi Afrika. Besime kunye apha ngoku simkile so spirit sowuma kunye. In our inquiry report, we urge the shareholder and board of directors to take decisive action to clean up Eskom and improve its financial position. We also named a number of individuals who had been involved in the state capture project and asked the Zondo Commission to investigate further. The Zondo Commission is still in progress and they are still investigating the issues of Eskom and Nazinyani banifuna ntoni. We are thankful to the Commission. It is doing very well. Let me remind also the South African that there is a man called Matsela Koko. Matsela Koko, a loyal servant maybe of the Guptas. Let me remind South Africans that Koko was caught up twice on national television. First, denying that he signed a document authorizing the prepayment agreement of almost 600 million to Gupta-owned Teget. The second, claiming that he was not aware that his stepdaughter's company had scored a contract worth 1 billion rand at Eskom. Today, the same Koko is very outspoken on Twitter, projecting himself as an expert on Eskom matters. What is worse is that Koko, who is possibly a criminal, has been given a platform even by our radio stations to rubbish the current leadership of Eskom, which is doing so well to clean up Eskom. This would be a very good joke if circumstances were not tragic. Honorable Chairperson, let me emphasize this point. It is the role and duty of the Minister of Public Enterprises as the shareholder representative to oversee the boards and management of SOCs in the best interest of our country. If the ministers fails to account frankly and honestly to Parliament about the state of Eskom and its recovery plan, we will judge him harshly as this committee, as we have done with some of his predecessors. Our role as Parliament is to exercise effective oversight over the executive in terms of our constitutional and democratic mandate. There is no doubt that, as the President and the Finance Minister has said, drastic measures need to be taken to set Eskom and other SOEs on a new and sustainable trajectory. Siyayazi into esiyenzayo, siqinisekile ngento esiyenzayo. We therefore call on all our business people, lenders, organized workers and communities to be part of a constructive national debate to find lasting solutions on the issue of Eskom. We call on the minister and government to ensure that our people, particularly the working class and the poor, will benefit from the reconfiguration of state-owned companies. Singumbutho wesizwe, sifuna ukukhumbuza uluntu ukuba sithi ababantu ababekhokhela uphando sithi abantu ababekhokhela uphando kwimiba kaEskom sisebenzisana nogxa bethu beminye imibutho aba basiphikayo namhlanje secala imibutho yabasebenzi isondele kufutshane kwindlu yowiso mthetho yezizwe sishuka uxele miba idla umzi sicela urhulumente asondele kubasebenzi nabahlali kuboniswane side sifumane isisombulula kule ngxuba kaxaka akuzisinceda nto ukuba sithukane emoyeni senze izigrogriso urhulumente wethu xa sinkqubo yokuvelisa amandla ombane ngobuchule nobuchwephesha bale mihla obu buchule busenza sikwazi ukusindleka uluntu lweenkonzo zombane ocokekileyo lo mnyathelo enza ukuba ikamva labantwana bethu liqaqambe sisatsho namhlanje awukho omnye umbutho omawuvotelwe ngaphandle kwe-ANC yi-ANC yodwa.
Madam Chair, this debate should have taken place as early as 2013 when the construction of the Mutubi and Kusile power stations were virtually cumbersome. We should have raised the alarm when we were warned by Finance 24 that the preferential tariffs for the 2 BHP built-in smelters, Hillside in Richards Bay and Mosel in Maputo, enabled the 2 loss-making smelters to be sustained, while the rest of the country's consumers, both households and industries, paid higher prices as far as electricity is concerned. Scopa should have called Mr. Ben Gubane when Eskom was subsidizing optimum coal at a loss. Mr. Zola Tsotsi, former Eskom chairperson, should have raised the alarm when politicians were meddling in Eskom's affairs. Chair, Eskom problems are self-inflicted. Our country's growth is dependent on the reliability, clean and efficient energy security. Eskom has to be unbundled. It has a huge responsibility that cannot be left to politicians alone. We need to lower the electricity costs and improve the electricity supply. This is possibly feasible in an environment where competition in the generation and transmission of electricity is allowed. Chair, we are also disenchanted by the attitude of the trade unions in shaping the debate about the unbundling of Eskom. They have tended to be opportunists in this regard. This knee-jerk reaction is unscientific, ill-informed, and merely pedestrian. We hope that the current board will scale up the process of maintaining the plants and the power utility, including the colliers and power stations. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kalo. Ntate Tloyama.
Honorable members, Honorable Chair, those who believe that the ANC can save Eskom, they suffer from self-hate. Eskom is like a bribery machine run by the ANC deployees. Eskom crisis is an ANC-made disaster. The morally bankrupt ANC is clueless on how to solve Eskom crisis. Honorable members, Honorable Ranto came here and say, Machela Koko is a criminal. He was working on behalf of the Guptas. She forgot to say the Guptas were also working for Mr. President Zuma. Honorable members, the question we need to ask ourselves is why Brian Molefe is not in jail? Why Machela Koko still a free man? The answer is very simple. These people were stealing money
that you cannot do that without a substantive motion. So continue.
Sorry, House Chairperson.
Continue.
House Chairperson, a point of order. There was no point of order taken. With respect, House Chair.
No,
and
I
with
have
respect,
a right. I
what
have
the honourable member said is fair political
I have the
comment.
discretion to do that.
That is fair political comment.
Honourable Steenhuisen, take your seat.
It is unfair.
Continue, Honourable Malachi. I have a right to do that. Continue, Honourable Malachi. Yes, Honourable Member.
Please,
Honourable Member.
House Chairperson, you may not switch off a member's microphone without following the procedure that's set in terms of the rules.
Because you never got permission in the first place. Good.
House
Thank you.
Chairperson, you have a procedure to follow before you turn off microphones in this
Steenhuisen,
House.
I did not allow you,
Can't
to
expect
raise
us
your
to follow the
point.
rules if you don't follow the rules yourself.
Honourable Steenhuisen, I never gave you permission to speak, so I'm going to disregard everything that you are saying. Proceed, Honourable Malachi.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable members, while some parties in this House talk about hypothetical solutions masquerading as superior logic, we've got concrete workable solutions to ensure Eskom's sustainability. And these include, one, changing Eskom's coal procurement policy to allow Eskom to procure coal from any credible source, to introduce independent power producers, to reaffirm Eskom's engineering and maintenance employees as an essential service so that they cannot enter into strike action, to introduce a drastic salary restructuring of Eskom's executives, and finally, to implore municipalities to embark on a name and shame campaign of the main offenders that are not paying their electricity bills. And while talking about this, Honorable Mganga Kabashe, you know, it is all well and nice to encourage members of the public to pay their electricity bills, but equally do the same to your ANC colleagues in Midval, in the city of Cape Town, in the city of Tshwane, who have outstanding municipal bills and are contributing to the municipal debt that goes unpaid. So to the South Africans watching at home, every power cut you experience is a reminder that the ANC is killing the lights. Therefore, a vote for the ANC is a vote for more power cuts. Because we are in this crisis because the ANC allowed Eskom's debt to grow to unaffordable levels. We are in this crisis because of executive instability at Eskom, evidenced in the appointment of 6 CEOs over a time frame of 10 years. And again, Honorable Ranto, it was the ANC that appointed these CEOs, so you must own up to everything that has happened in there. We are in this crisis because the ANC government has failed to complete both Kusile and Medupi power stations on time. So, South Africans, use your votes to cut the ANC's power and vote for a government that has credible solutions to solve the country's power crisis. And that party, Honorable Jackson Mthembu, is the DA.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Public Enterprises.
Honourable Chairperson, honourable members and members of the public that have an interest in this debate. This debate is titled A Matter of National Importance. And I imagine that the speakers from all the political parties are invited in this debate, and we thank the DA for taking the initiative in this regard, because at least we can demonstrate what we're doing as a country and as a government at this point in time. But what the public expects is for speakers here from all the political parties to offer concrete solutions to what are concrete problems. Instead, what we have is either a repetition of what we've already said as government in the public domain, and that's only by the last speaker, by the way, Mr. Malatsi, or secondly, there's this magic wand called privatization, that if you privatize, you will solve all the problems that we actually have. Now, let's compare that to the real answers that the public wants, which is, firstly, can we demonstrate that we realize that electricity supply is central to a country's economy, central to a country's societal welfare, and central to development in a country. Therefore, it should be a matter of national interest where we don't end up squabbling in front of the public but engage in meaningful debates about what the alternative solutions are to the problems that we are confronted with. And we're quite prepared to listen to what the alternatives might actually be. So, can we raise the bar in our debates to one where we put the national interest first and provide answers to the public and even demonstrate to the public that we are capable, notwithstanding elections on the 8th of May, to only use this platform to say, vote for me, and hold a figurative banner in front of the South African public. But let's then come back to what the President said during SONA. Firstly, we acknowledge that we have a challenge and a crisis as far as Eskom is concerned. Secondly, we have the beginnings of a solution in terms of restructuring Eskom into the three entities: generation, transmission, and distribution. Thirdly, the President announced that the Minister of Finance will give further insights into what government can do in respect of the finances of Eskom. So yesterday, you heard the answer to that particular point: 23 billion rands a year for the next 10 years, and there are other mechanisms that are still being considered, and once they are ready and prepared, we will actually ensure that those are actually announced. Fourthly, he also announced a committee of ministers that actually met this morning to work out what is it that we do on an urgent basis in addition to what Eskom is doing itself and what we are doing as a department. But the first substantial point arising out of the SONA debate is, firstly, nobody mentions here the energy transition that's taking place in the world. How are we getting a different mix of energy solutions that are actually developing, educate the South African public and the workers at Eskom, how this transition is actually going to impact upon us over the next 10 to 20 years, moving from fossil fuels to gas to renewables and to other propositions like nuclear and other technologies that might still be developed. Secondly, again in contextual terms, the energy industry is going through massive structural changes, in fact, for the last 20 years or so. And those structural changes are moving away from an integrated, vertically integrated entity to separation of these entities in terms of different business divisions, and that the integrated model is no longer the model of the future. Thirdly, that increasingly renewable energy is going to play an important role in the energy mix. But renewable energy at this point in time cannot provide the base load that is required, which you can either get from coal, nuclear, or gas to some extent. And hopefully the gas discoveries that South Africa has made in the recent past will come to fruition in the next 5 to 8 years and begin to make a difference in terms of both energy cost and the energy mix that we will have in our country. Excuse me. The fourth point is that there is the concept of the just transition. Not a single speaker, Chairperson, talked about what does a just transition mean. It means that you don't cut off coal immediately, that you're not saying to coal miners, the coal mining industry that employs hundreds of thousands of people, that you have no future. Secondly, we don't say to people working in coal-powered stations who are waiting to hear the answer from this House, what's our future? And the future is not one which is going to say to them, you have no jobs tomorrow morning. The third is that there is this transition from current sources of energy to future sources of energy, and how that impacts upon both South Africans as far as workers are concerned, but others as well. So, there are many other elements to the just transition that perhaps we ourselves need to educate ourselves, and perhaps that might happen in the next administration. The next point, Chairperson, is there is, if you like, a turnaround plan as far as Eskom itself is concerned. The first element is what the President has announced, and that is the creation of the three entities, and in the first instance, which is actually articulated very clearly in this annexure to the budget review that was published yesterday, and that is the creation of the transmission entity, so that we can now begin the separation process of the three entities that will constitute Eskom of the future. Of course, in that process, we have to ensure that as we progress, we consult labor, and we consult, as I will point out in a moment, all the other important stakeholders that have some connection with Eskom in one way or another. As far as the finances of Eskom is concerned, the first answer is the 23 billion rands a year that the Minister of Finance has set aside. The second answer depends upon NERSA and the manner in which it manages and responds to the MYPD application of Eskom for a 15% increase. So anything between inflation and that number is a number that I think Eskom will have to live with and work with and take into account. The third element is to cut costs within Eskom, and in particular the kind of wastage that might be going and is going on in the organization, whether it is in relation to coal, and I'll come back to that point. We had a recent meeting last Friday with the coal mining community and CEOs of various companies that own coal mines to begin to get an understanding both of their issues, but also for them to begin to understand the issues that we have. Second, the cost of maintenance, which is on the one hand extravagant, if you like, but on the other hand, doesn't give us the quality of maintenance that is actually required, as a result of which we have the continuous unanticipated breakdowns that we have. The third is the question of the capital investment that is still currently being made in Medupi and Kusile, and that is a matter which I will explain in a moment that's going to be looked at quite intensely to ensure that we're getting, notwithstanding the delays that have happened, notwithstanding the tripling of the costs that we've had, we still want to derive the best possible financial benefits from this particular area. The next area is the interest on debt, and the 23 billion rands that the Minister of Finance set aside yesterday begins to make a contribution, as the chairperson of the board of Eskom said, to cutting down Eskom's burden as far as payment for this debt is concerned, and begins to help them to generate or use some of the cash as a result of this assistance they're getting from government for better purposes within the organization and its transition through the structural changes that have to take place as well. The other cost-cutting area, importantly, is the salary bill, which has increased 5 times in the last 10 years, and in particular, the bloated management layers. And here again, we have started engagements, both as a political organization, but more importantly as government, with the labor constituency, and we're only at the beginning of those processes. The Eskom management must now continue with that process to say how best do we manage this? How do we prepare workers at Eskom, not only for the kind of future they have within the coal mines and in the coal-powered stations, but what is their future as far as renewables is concerned? What are the new jobs that they can be trained for? What are the new technologies that are actually developing in the energy industry? And how can they best be prepared for that future as well? So if you recall, that's the whole area of cost cutting, and in particular, the kind of wastage that still goes on within the Eskom environment because of the monopoly culture that they have within the organization at this point in time. There will be other measures, as this annex suggests, to manage the question of the 419 billion rands of debt. There are technical efforts being made at the moment to formulate a range of responses and answers on this particular question. And once we are ready and have gone through cabinet processes, we will inform both this House, if you're still in session, and the public about these questions. Then, so we've covered the restructuring of Eskom, we covered the financial aspect of Eskom. Now we come to the operational part of Eskom. And many of the outages that we're experiencing is as a result of, if you like, inadequate attention in the operational area. It is in this context that last Friday I met with the Engineering Council of South Africa, which is a statutory body, which has some 40-odd voluntary associations affiliated to it, covering all the different disciplines in the engineering profession, from civil engineering, electrical engineering, marine engineering, and a variety of others as well. Some 25 representatives attended this meeting, and they all came there on a tumamina basis. We would like to help. We understand that this is a national emergency, and we'd like to contribute the services of our members on a tumamina basis, and you should applaud the efforts and the offers that they've made. We hope in the next 24 hours, through the recommendations that they've made, including recommendations and offers from academic institutions, to actually constitute an operational review team. So this is a group of engineers who will go to some, if not all, of our power stations and independently look at what kind of maintenance has been done, what is the operational discipline within each of the power stations, are the engineering disciplines being followed in the right kind of way, do we have the right experience of people in this environment. The task team that the President set up said that in many of our power stations, the average age of engineers is about 35 years. What we now need to do is to merge the enthusiasm and the power of youth, if you like, with experience so that we get the right level of engineering skills in each of our power stations. So let me then come back to Eskom itself. Eskom over the past few months has developed a comprehensive turnaround plan that will now include many of the elements that I've talked about. And that will then result in the creation of a turnaround office. The head of the turnaround office will be the kind of person that the Minister of Finance referred to earlier on, and will be accountable both to the board and to the shareholder as well. And this time we want to ensure that there is a disciplined approach to achieving the milestones that is set out in the turnaround plan, and effective implementation takes place. As of the problems that we had in December last year, Eskom developed a 9-point generation plan. That generation plan, unfortunately, didn't meet with the 100% success that we expected, so we concede that to the country that Eskom got that wrong, particularly in relation to the 7 units that had difficulties a few days ago. However, for this week, it would appear Eskom has got the combination of availability of the coal-powered units, the water pump storage mechanisms, and the diesel power that is available from what they call OCGTs. That combination is working ideally at the moment, and as a result, we have no load shedding for the last few days. And hopefully that will continue into the future if there are no surprises. What the country might not be aware of is that of the 18 or so power stations that Eskom manages at the moment, there are 5 or 6 of them that are over 40 years in age. So they are old power stations. Some of them are even 55 years of age. Some of them have had, Hendrina Power Station, for example, of the 10 units that were built in Hendrina, 3 of those units have already been shut down. So old age affects power stations as well. It begins to affect the performance of those power stations, and we have to deal with those challenges in addition. The restructuring plan will also enable the Eskom professionals to focus their attention on each of those 3 areas, generation, transmission, and distribution, in a more energetic and sharper way than we've been able to do up to this point in time. And that's one of the motivations for the restructuring, which is explained again in this annexure to the budget review. The board of Eskom has a few vacancies at the moment, and within the next month or so, we will strengthen the board with more engineers who are then going to be able to complement the current skill set that the board has, and perhaps 1 or 2 people who actually have the experience of turning around big institutions. Eskom is one of probably the biggest business in this country. I don't think all of us have a sufficient appreciation of that. And turning that around, or even managing that institution, is a massive exercise that we have to take account of as we go forward, and in deciding on the kind of combination of management skills that we need to put together as well. So the cost-cutting exercise is also part of the Eskom plan. In the next 2 or 3 years, they hope to reach a point where 20 billion rands a year will be part of the savings and their contribution towards the cutting of costs as well. I've mentioned the issue of rationalizing the management tiers in particular. But I think all the parties in this House should be unanimous in sending a message to the honest, hard-working engineers and other professionals and staff of Eskom at all levels that we have faith in their ability to keep the lights on, notwithstanding the difficulties that they have up to this point in time, that they should not be absorbed in the kind of fake news that is being put around by previous managers, as Honorable Ranto mentioned, of Eskom, keep their heads away from the politics of the country, focus on the business of Eskom, make sure that we follow the engineering and other disciplines that Eskom actually requires, and build up the confidence of the South African public in what is a great institution, whether you are a black engineer, a white engineer, a young engineer, or an old engineer. All of you, in particular, the new generation of engineers coming up, particularly from black communities, have a powerful contribution to make. In order to make sure that we win over and explain ourselves to, but also get consensus among stakeholders, we've had 2 meetings with Labour, as I indicated, and that's only the beginning of a process, I must concede. On the 5th of March, the Minister of Labour is arranging for us to brief Eskom, brief NEDLAC on the Eskom matters, so that all the constituencies of NEDLAC also have an understanding of what the technical issues are, but also more importantly, what our plans are. Last Friday, as I mentioned, we met the CEOs of the mining companies, and a number of recommendations have emerged from there. And one of the things that I think this House should be very critical of is some of the disruptions that is going on in the Mpumalanga area in respect of delivery of coal to mines. That is part of the sabotage process that I think we should, A, have the state security apparatus investigating on the one hand, but on the other hand, I think those who are involved in this must actually understand that we disapprove of the kind of disruptive tactics that they've been actually using. I also mentioned the meeting with the Engineering Council, and we will keep that engagement going. And there are a lot of resources in this country that we will utilize in order to ensure that we get the best possible engineers to assist Eskom to get out of some of the difficulties that it finds itself in. But lastly, a meeting that we still need to schedule is amongst the original equipment manufacturers, those that have supplied the boilers, the tubes, the electronic equipment and monitoring instrumentation that Eskom actually has. Now, many of us, including the Honorable Paulson, have bought into, for one reason or another, into this narrative about who is responsible for the restructuring of Eskom and what are the motivations for the restructuring of Eskom. And it's fascinating how the same narrative appears in different places, but at the same time, about the intent is privatization, after the president made it very clear that the intent is to create an Eskom that can supply energy to this country. It's not to privatize it. Let's be absolutely clear on that. Nor is it about creating a deliberate situation where we're going to engage in job losses for the sake of job losses. I think we all have a responsibility to ensure that the 48,000 people that work for Eskom are assured that their working future is guaranteed in some kind of way, that they will be prepared with the assistance of the state and with the assistance of the private sector to have a future in the energy industry, which might itself be changing as we go into the future. But let us not delude ourselves, as Honorable Ranto and the chair of the Public Enterprises Committee said as well, Ms. Kabashir, that corruption and state capture and its after effects are still very much with us. And that is beginning, that remains, if you like, a cancer that still needs to be actually removed. Honorable Mazzoni was an important and very important part of the Portfolio Committee's investigation into Eskom. And all of us as political parties at that time concurred that we need to fight state capture, expose it, and it's good that our reports are now going to find their way to the Zondo Commission that can put all of the other information together and reinforce what we have already found about who are the guilty parties as far as this is concerned. So, whether it is coal purchasing, diesel purchasing, the maintenance contracts, all of those things need to be looked at. And we want to also support Corruption Watch in its application to the High Court that some of the directors of Eskom must be declared as delinquent directors of Eskom. Like in the case of Transnet, we must also have civil claims against those members of both the boards and the management who have caused losses, monetary losses, as far as Eskom is concerned. And of course, ideally, many of them need to land up in jail rather than sitting at home comfortably at this point in time. But let us warn the country that there is a deliberate fight back at the moment, orchestrated on quite a wide scale, and fake news and this orchestrated campaigns in social media are all part of an effort to make sure that people can bluff the South African public about who was guilty for some of the problems that Eskom finds itself in today. And the problem is very easy to say ANC, but the real issue is if we all believe that those who have individuals who are guilty must find themselves in orange uniforms, then stop saying just ANC. That's for election purposes. Because we don't want to go to Swane and Johannesburg and the deals that have been made there, and who should end up in jail as far as those deals are concerned. Because one day, that will also come to bite us as far as some of the political parties here is concerned.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
So in conclusion, Chair, it's quite clear the ANC might have had problems in the past, but the ANC is going to solve those problems. So vote ANC on the 8th of May.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, honorable members. That concludes the debate and the House is adjourned.